Hey guys, this is Ask Pastor Michael. It's so good to be with you tonight. And the first thing that I want to share with you is that starting really tomorrow, June 1st, I am going to be on sabbatical for 2 months. And this is really not news to you. You've been hearing about this for a couple months, really. But I just wanted to remind you of it. And I also wanted to say this, how grateful I am as your pastor that you're giving me this privilege of going on sabbatical. This is a time where I'll be seeking after the Lord, I'll be reading the Bible, I'll be praying. It's really meant for spiritual renewal. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity to get away, to recharge, to be back here August 1st and raring to go, which that's my hope and that's my prayer. So thank you. I'll be thinking about you. I'll miss you, and so thank you very much for that. So, Ask Pastor Michael, this is week 5, and we've done a few other things in between as well, but primarily what we've been doing is I've asked you to give me some questions that you have about the Bible, about the world, and so that I could share with you what the Word of God has to say about those issues and about those questions. And so we're going to do that tonight. And again, this will be the last time that we do Ask Pastor Michael. But before we do that, I wanted to remind you or perhaps share with you for the first time this, a new aspect of our vision. Our vision, as you can see, is to be deeply rooted in 6 counties. Deeply rooted in 6 counties. So we understand that here we are in Watertown, South Dakota. Our county is Coddington County. But we also realize, of course, that there are people coming from counties all around us. And so we want to be equipping you, the people at New Life Church, to be doing the work of ministry. And that's Ephesians 4. This is one of the primary roles as a pastor, is not really to be doing all the work of ministry, but to be equipping you to do the work of ministry, to be making disciples. And so, as we want to be growing deeper in God, one of the things that we want to focus in on for the next year is growing deeper in God's Word together. And so we've developed a pretty extensive plan for this. So what you can do is begin starting June 1st, you, your family, your kids, is we have developed a Bible reading plan. And so what we would love for you to do is go to our church website. You could sign up there. You can see what the plan is. And we would encourage you and your family to be doing this Bible reading plan starting June 1st. And it'll last for approximately a year. It's a wonderful overview plan of the Word of God. And we know that if we're going to grow deeper in who God is and our knowledge and our love of Him, that means we must be in His Word. There's really no other way. And this is one of the most critical things that we could be doing as a church. I'll share with you this. This is something that I said on Sunday is that as we've been thinking about this vision, we were very close. This is a behind the scenes look, in case you care. We were very close to going in a slightly different direction with this vision and really talking about getting to know our neighbors and building relationships. And we hope to come back to that soon. But with COVID-19, we realized that the timing of this vision and really talking about building relationships, that the timing wasn't so good, right? And so we said, you know what, let's hit the pause on that. And let's instead, right now, at this moment in time during this pandemic, let's do something that we all can do. Something that we all know is safe and important. Again, going into God's Word. So we can't make a mistake doing that. So just want to encourage you, go to the church website, see what this plan is. We hope that you will join us. We believe it will be life-changing. So what is our question for today? Here's our question for today. How should we as Christians respond to COVID-19? How should we respond to COVID-19? And so I want to share with you a few ideas. I have one main idea that I want to focus in on. I have some ideas that I think are not a good way to respond to this pandemic and that I actually see happening. And so I want to steer you away from them, but then I want to focus in on one main idea. But the first thing that I want to say is this, is how do we respond to COVID-19 in this pandemic? Let me just go back to what I already talked about. How about doing a Bible reading plan for the upcoming year? Okay, I know. Yes, I already said that, but I want to encourage you to do that. How do you respond? Well, a great way to respond is, again, by going deeper in God's Word. I already talked about that. The next thing that I want to talk about is this is something that, I want to steer you away from, and that is be careful about promoting false conspiracy theories. Be careful about promoting false conspiracy theories. Now, please hear me. I'm not telling you that if you think there's something going on in our culture, if you think there's something going on within our government, I'm not saying, hey, you can never speak up about it. I'm not saying that. So please don't put words in my mouth. But what I am saying is this is, it is a responsibility that you and I have to really look into it before you hit that button on your computer and post it. We don't want to just say, well, hey, I found this interesting. It mentions like 10 people and it puts them in the worst possible light, and I just thought I would share it with all my friends. You really shouldn't do that. If you're going to post it, what you need to do is you need to do some research. As you are about to post it, or as you are about to articulate this theory, you need to come to a place in your mind where you know that as far as you can tell after doing research, that this is accurate, that it is truthful, that you have knowledge that it is true. Here's the danger that we get into. If we just start throwing around all these conspiracy theories, you run the risk of actually slandering people. That would be what we call a sin, right? If you are just throwing people under the bus and you don't really know if the information is true, that would be a bad thing to do. So we need to be careful about that. So that's one thing we want to be careful about. Here's another thing that I want to communicate, and that's this. Let's be kind to those that we disagree with. In Ephesians 4:31 through 32, the Apostle Paul writes this: "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you." So obviously what Paul is doing is something that he always does. He talks about the gospel, and because the gospel is true, therefore there's a certain way that we should live. Christ forgave us, we should forgive others. Christ was kind to us, so we should be kind to others. So I just want to encourage you, as you are having conversations with people, as you're typing away, as you're making a post on your phone, be kind. The people that you want to communicate to or that you disagree with, please remember, they are not your enemies. They are not the bad guy, right? We have a spiritual battle going on, and that's very real. That's our enemy, all right? But what we want to do is, even when we disagree with people about COVID-19, the pandemic, when should you go back to church? When should you not go back to church? Instead of getting into fights, let's understand it's okay for people to have a different opinion. That's really okay. To be respectful, to be kind, and to not allow this moment to divide us. We do have an enemy who would love to see that happen, right? Who would love to see us become divided. Let's remain united, and one of the ways that we can do that is by being respectful and by being kind. Again, right now we're just thinking about how do we as Christians respond to COVID-19? But here's the thing that I wanted to really focus in on. And so this is my primary response to this idea of what do we do in light of this pandemic? Here it is. Are you ready? This is going to be shocking to you if you know me and you've been a part of New Life Church for a while. Let's focus on the main thing as a church and as Christians, which is, what would you say? What is the main thing for the church to be focusing in on? What is the main thing for each and every Christian to be focusing in on? I'm going to go ahead and say it. You should know the answer. And the answer is making disciples. Okay, I drew that out too long. I realize that. But the answer is making disciples. What's the primary mission that Jesus gave to the church and individual Christians? And I know the church is made up of individual Christians, but I'm speaking in that way because I want us to own this responsibility. Sometimes we think, well, that's for the church. Well, we are the church. Jesus gave these marching orders before he ascended into heaven. He wanted to give his disciples and the church, you and me, he wanted to give them the final orders. This is what you need to focus in on. You are going to be tempted, as I'm trying to look into the camera, you are going to be tempted to be distracted by a million things. We know this. And so Jesus, he's about to leave them behind, send the Holy Spirit, and here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do if you want to see the world changed. Matthew 28:16. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mount to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. So what we see there is this: the primary mission of the church, the primary mission of each individual Christian is to be making disciples. This is supposed to be, when we think about what we're putting our energy towards, what our mind goes towards, we need to acknowledge that Jesus was talking to us, that our primary mission is to be making disciples. Francis Chan put it like this. I found this quote, and as you probably know, he usually has some challenging things to say. This is a quote from Francis Chan about making disciples. Yet somehow many have come to believe that a person can be a Christian without becoming like Christ, a follower who doesn't follow. How does that make any sense? Many people in the church have decided to take on the name of Christ and nothing else. This would be like Jesus walking up to those first disciples and saying, hey, would you guys mind identifying yourselves with me in some way? Don't worry, I don't actually care if you do anything I do or change your lifestyle at all. I'm just looking for people who are willing to say they believe in me and call themselves Christians, end quote. And so, obviously, the point that he is making is that it's not just enough for you and I to say that we're a disciple of Jesus. It's not just enough for you and I to say that we're Christians or that we're religious. We have to understand the meaning of that from Jesus' perspective. And he was calling people, listen, I'm going to call you, but here, I want you to know this. You are going to become fishers of men, fishers of women, old and young. This is what I'm going to be doing. I am going to be training you. I'm going to be building into you, but it's all for a purpose so that you can go and do likewise. So we want to be careful about coming up with our own definition, and I know we would not do this consciously, but our own definition of what it means to be a disciple. At the very heart of what it means to be a disciple is to be a disciple maker. That's not something that the elite Christians do. It's something that we are all called to do. It's crazy. It's crazy. Somehow in the church, the idea of being a disciple maker has become an optional thing. There's a lot of history with that. I'd love to talk with you some point in time how that actually happened. Sometimes the way the church is actually set up kind of breeds that mentality. The idea that we're coming to church to watch other people do the work of ministry and then we go home, and that's really not how God designed the church to be. So, here's something to keep in mind as we think about how should you be responding to COVID-19? Well, you have your mission, That's how we should be responding. Think about this. Jesus lived under the tyranny of some really incredibly godless leaders, right? He lived under the Roman Empire and some rulers who were incredibly godless. And he lived under rulers who were working with all their might against the kingdom of God. It wasn't a conspiracy, it was just the facts, right? I mean, so these are, when Jesus was born, I mean, there were soldiers sent in to actually wipe out all the children near the age of Jesus because they so despised him, didn't want any rival to their kingdom. Jesus worked under this kind of leadership. He worked under this kind of government. And so, the reason I bring that up is to ask this question: how did Jesus respond to what was going on in his local government? When was the last time someone asked you that question? When was the last time that you thought about that question? How did Jesus respond to his government? What did he focus in on? He made disciples. Jesus came to this earth because he wanted to change the world, right? There's a lot to that statement. He wanted to change the world. So, what did he focus in on? How did he use his time? He made disciples. Jesus knew there were evil, sinister forces at work all around him. And it wasn't a false conspiracy theory. This was the reality. He knew that there were forces working all around him, against him. So, what was he going to be busy doing in light of that? He made disciples. The church and we as Christians, as we think about how Jesus spent his ministry years, we realize that that's what he focused in on. But one of the problems for you and I is that we become so distracted. The church gets so distracted. We as Christians get so distracted. As the Apostle Paul talks about, we get entwined, we get enmeshed into civilian affairs. We lose sight of what we should be doing. Here's what I believe is a really practical question. How do we do this during a pandemic? I know some of us, some people are like, hey, the COVID-19 is going on, and truth of the matter is, I'm just not that concerned about it. And then there's some of us who are like, hey, I'm genuinely really concerned about it. No matter what our response is, can we make disciples during COVID-19? This is the mission. There's really no question about it. But can we do it during a time like this? My answer is yes. And to take it a step further, the answer is it's not optional, right? This is not something we get to choose. Well, I'm going to be a follower of Christ, but making disciples is optional. We don't get to do that. We don't get to make up, and I want to say this in a kind way, but we don't get to make up a definition of what it means to be a disciple. So it's not optional. Yes, and so we can do it during a pandemic. Let me suggest some ways. Number one, how about your family? Moms and dads, are you making disciples at home? How? And so during this pandemic, man, you're together more than normal. Are you sometimes opening up the Bible? Say, hey kids, I was just having my quiet time. Let me read this passage of Scripture, and then let's see if you have some questions and pray together. Does not need to be complicated. We've been talking the past year about who's your one. That's been a focus. Who's one person that God has placed in your life that you can build a relationship with so that they would come to know the joy of knowing Jesus Christ? Even during a pandemic, you can continue to build a relationship. You can send them a text. You can call them up. You can get together 6 feet apart if you so desire. You can still continue to invest in that person. How about people you interact with in everyday life? And this is at the heart of our vision, deeply rooted in 6 counties. What we want to be, everyone in our church, to begin to see is God has placed you where you are at. That is your mission field. He's placed you there, not that you will think about missions taking place in some other part of the world. He's placed you where you are at for a reason, so that you will be an ambassador, a witness for Jesus Christ. Do you see everyday life as your mission field? Do you recognize all the discipleship opportunities that you have in everyday life? And so there are a lot of ways that even during a pandemic, we can continue on with this mission. Bill Hull wrote this: God has not promised to bless our good motives, dreams, and innovation. That's a challenge, a convicting word for the church. He has promised to bless His plan. That plan is that disciples make other disciples. Everything else is a sideshow. What do you think of that? He's 100% right. In the church, everything that we are doing should be for the purpose so that people will become more like Christ. If you want to know my passion as a pastor, that's it. That everyone is becoming more like Jesus Christ. That people who do not yet know Jesus would come to know Him for the first time and then become more like Jesus Christ. That's my passion. That's what I want for New Life Church. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for your kids. And listen, that's what you should want. Not because I want it for you, because that's what the Bible is telling you that we should be giving our time to. Not just our time, our very life. And as Bill Hull said, everything else is a sideshow. Everything else is a sideshow. So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave this with you. Imagine for a moment this. Imagine where everyone in the church no longer understands that the church is about showing up on Sunday and watching the leaders or the pastors do the work of ministry and then going back and living their own life. And kind of this mentality of expecting other people to do the work of ministry. That's not our goal. It's not what we want. That's not Ephesians 4, where pastors, teachers are building people up to do the work of ministry. But imagine this instead. Imagine every person in the church understands that it is their joy, it is their honor, it's their responsibility to be investing in people relationally. Not just with online posts, not just with arguments, but building intentional relationships with the express purpose of helping them to become more like Christ. Think about that. Think about the impact that kind of church would have. Think about how they could change a city. Think about how they could change 6 counties. I don't want to necessarily work myself out of a job, but that would kind of make the person who's preaching all the time, that's still an important role, but it wouldn't be the only way that ministry is taking place, and it shouldn't be the only way that ministry is taking place. So if you and I can begin to imagine a church that is functioning like that, that's engaging with people in relationships and listening, not just trying to win arguments and getting their hands dirty, building relationships, it quickly you begin to realize that is going to be a powerful church. And I want to tell you, again, that's my heart. That's my heart for New Life Church, is that each and every one of us will embrace this as disciple makers, because I believe that's what the Scripture tells us. Whether there's a pandemic, whether there's not a pandemic, whether there's things going on in the culture that we don't like, whether there's things going on behind the scenes in our government that we don't like, you and I, no matter what else we're doing, we have to stay focused on the main thing, and the main thing is helping people to become more like Jesus. That's it for Ask Pastor Michael. That's my final one. I do want to tell you this. We've been giving away books, right? And so here's the book I want to give away. It's called, it's probably no surprise that this would be the topic. It's called Discipling: How to Help Others Follow Jesus. And it's by Mark Dever, a guy I've met, a godly man who pastors a church in in Washington, D.C., discipling how to help others follow Jesus. So if you do this, if you will share this link on Facebook, if you will share it, then I will pick from random, and I've done this every week, just so you know, I've followed up, I've actually given away books. If you will share it at random, I will select those from those who have shared it, and we will make sure that you get this good, great book. It's very small, easy to read, very powerful, very biblical. So I'm going to tell you this. I'll be back August 1st, New Life Church. I want you to know this. I love you. I really love you. I have never enjoyed ministry as much as I have enjoyed ministry here in Watertown, South Dakota with you. Being your pastor is a joy. I'm saying that from the bottom of my heart. I'm looking forward to coming back in August and being your pastor and being recharged. And I hope even now that you guys are digging into God's Word with this Bible reading plan. You're thinking about how you can change the world by investing in people, and that when we get back together, when I rejoin you in August, and then we start thinking about the fall, that we will be ready to do some serious kingdom work. I believe God is preparing us even now for that. So I love you. God bless, and I will talk to you soon.